In the hype over Wednesday's arrival of the first lot of 5 French-built Rafale fighter aircraft, it was easy to lose sight of the indigenous light combat aircraft LCA Tejas, which, after years of development delays, is slowly entering squadron service. What has become of the order for the 83 Tejas Mark 1A variants that the Air Force was to place with the public sector, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited? Officials told that the order is likely to be confirmed before December 2020. Earlier this year, after months of negotiations, HAL and Indian Air Force finally agreed on a price tag of 39,000 crore rupee for the 83 aircraft, wherein which 73 will be fighter jets and 10 will be two-seat trainer variants. HAL officials attributed the delay to several outstanding issues, particularly a number of queries related to additional requirements through contract. All queries have now been answered and the case is under approval as said by the HAL official. To get in detail with this particular most important information and various other considerable inputs, let us begin with today's defense updates of 1st of August 2020. Hello and welcome to SSB Crack Exams. If in case you are preparing for various defense examinations, SSB Crack Exams is one-stop solution for you. We are India's largest platform for various defense examinations including NDA, CDS, AFCAT, INET, Territorial Army and Indian Air Forces Airman Group X and Group 5. You can simply download our Android app from Google Play Store, wherein which you will get immense amount of study material and a lot of important lecture content and in detail material regarding to the current issues in your hand. Beginning with the question of the day that I have posted on 31st of July 2020. And the question that I asked was, recently, which country's defense minister has been sworn in as the prime minister of that country? I repeat the question, recently, which country's defense minister has been sworn in as the prime minister of that country? And most of you have given a correct answer for that. And the correct answer for this is about the country's Ivory Coast. And Hamid Bakayoko is named as the country's new prime minister. The Ivory Coast president, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, has declared that the defense minister Hamid Bakayoko will be the new prime minister after acting as the interim prime minister. Why was he acting as an interim prime minister? Because the existing prime minister before he was Amadou Gon Coulibaly. He died unfortunately on July 8th during his presidency term, and the defense minister Hamid Bakayoko was named as the interim president. Has been named as interim prime minister, but the Ivory Coast president, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, has declared that he will continue to be the official prime minister of Ivory Coast, and he will also retain the position as defense minister in his new post, including the prime minister's post, as said by the presidency in his statement. Okay, so that is it with this particular most important update, and this sort of updates will be very much important if you are preparing for AFCAT and INET examinations. In those examinations, these questions will be asked because these are extremely related towards the current affairs. Okay, so beginning with the first and foremost defense update is that the French Armed Forces medical delegation was there at Air Force Station Hindon. They visited the Air Force Station Hindon. This was done on 29th of July 2020, where the French medical delegation, it was led by General Patrick Derain. He visited Air Force Station Hindon for professional interaction with IAF Aeromedical delegation and the demonstration of aeromedical evacuation on C-17 by aircraft by the Indian Air Force. So, Indian Air Force were demonstrating the aeromedical evacuation on the Boeing C-17 Globemaster aircraft, and they have also interacted, they have professionally interacted with the aeromedical delegation and with the French Armed Forces medical delegation, which was led by General Patrick Derain. Also, to get in detail that the IAF delegation was on this side headed by the Assistant Chief of Air Staff Medical Air Vice Marshal Daljit Singh, and other senior IAF medical officers were also present for the interaction. C-17 ambulance version was mass casualty carriage and procedure for the transfer of the casualties on a patient transfer unit was also demonstrated here. Okay, so going on with another details that the airborne rescue pod for isolated transportation. Please remember, I told you to remember about the ARPIT pods, and everybody should be very much clear regarding this. So ARPIT is a very important one. It is designed and developed indigenously by the Indian Air Force and was also demonstrated. ARPIT module is used for transporting infectious cases, including those suffering from the COVID-19 issues. So this is how ARPIT looks. Going on with the next important update is that India offers BrahMos exports to Indonesia. the possibility of expanding relations in the defense and military fields was discussed between both the talks between both Defense Minister, Indian Defense Minister Shri Rajnath Singh ji, and also the Indonesian Defense Minister Lieutenant General Prabowo Subianto. Both of them have discussed regarding this, and they have come to a discussion regarding the BrahMos exports to Indonesia. The problem of possibility of exporting BrahMos cruise missiles to Indonesia by India and further steps to deepen maritime security cooperation were also prominent in the talks between the two countries. So, two things that you have to remember is India exporting BrahMos missile, BrahMos super cruise missile to and Indonesia, and another one is to deepen maritime security cooperation, because Indonesia is a very island country. Many group of islands is called as Indonesia. Having a very good strategic ties with Indonesia will also improve various other issues, including the maritime security. Going on with the next important update is that orders for 83 LCA Tejas Mark 1A are going to be kept by the Defense Ministry to HAL likely before December of this year. Earlier this year, after months of negotiations, both Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and Indian Air Force have agreed on a price tag of rupees 39,000 crore for 83 aircraft. Among these 83 aircraft, 73 will be fighter planes and other one will be 10 two-seater trainer variants. Okay, so 83 aircrafts will be in which 73 will be fighter jets and 10 will be trainer variants, wherein which the trainer variants will be a two-seater variants. Okay, HAL officials have attributed to the day to several outstanding issues, particularly a number of queries related to additional requirements through contract, and as said by the official HAL officials that all queries have now been answered and the case is now under approval. Also, I have to tell you that 5 major private sector players are participating in the manufacturing of the HAL aircraft. All of the parts that are manufactured in these 5 important private sector players will now be rearranged and will be assembled at HAL. Now, what are those 5 important private sector players? They include the Larsen & Toubro, VEM Technologies, Alpha Tokol, Tata Advanced Materials and Dynamatic Technologies. All of these 5 are those important major private sector players, private sector companies. They are manufacturing the fuselages, wings, tail fins and rudders for the LCA aircraft. Okay, so other important parts will be manufactured at HAL itself. So all of these parts that are manufactured at these private companies will be assembled by HAL at its twin production lines in Bengaluru. Okay, now going on with the next important update is that India is set to ban import of weapons that can be produced indigenously. Please remember, if there are any sort of weapons that can be produced indigenously, then we are not importing those weapons from any other country. This is what they have discussed regarding the new defense acquisition procedure. Previously they used to call it as Defense Procurement Procedure DPP 2020. Now this has been renamed as Defense Acquisition Procedure DAP 2020 according to the draft put out by the Ministry of Defense. Okay, this is put out by the Ministry of Defense. The Defense Ministry will also notify a list of weapons platforms that are banned for import, which will be updated from time to time based on the requirements of the various services. The draft said preparation of this negative list is on. Okay, also now you have to understand what are we importing from various other countries. They include, according to the 48th report of Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defense, India's major equipment imports include rockets, simulator and component repair facility for tanks from Russia, laser designation pods, radars, aircraft pods, radios, weapons for Garud commandos and missiles from Israel, aircraft, helicopters, missiles, artillery guns, simulators from United States and aircraft ammunition, bi-modular charge system and high zone modules of artillery guns from France. All of these are most important weaponry that are imported from various other countries. Majorly they include 3 major countries that are tying major defense deals with our country, include the US, the Russia, that is USSR, and then comes the France and also comes the Israel. These are the 4 major countries from which we are having the most strategic imports. Okay, also now what are those that are under the exports? We can also manufacture some things. Defense equipment has rising the localization also regarding this one. So the important plans are being done and everything is being kept up. Local capabilities include that currently India exports indigenously developed patrol vessels, helicopters, sonars and radars, avionics, radar warning receivers, small arms, small caliber ammunition, grenades, telecom equipment, that means the telecommunication equipment, the coastal surveillance gears, simulators, bulletproof jackets and body armors. All of these will be low hanging fruits for completely shutting the doors to imports. Now going on with the final important defense update is that Air Marshal B. Suresh PVSM AVSM VM ADC, who is the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of Western Air Command of Indian Air Force, he proceeds on superannuation. He is going to retire, and he had his superannuation date on 31st of July 2020, and he had a very beautiful and very illustrious career spanning of nearly 40 years in the Indian Air Force. Some of the most important career highlights include that he was commissioned as a fighter pilot in Indian Air Force at 1980, in the year of 1980. He is an alumni of both Rashtriya Indian Military College Dehradun and also the National Defence Academy Khadakwasla. That means he was also the alumni of India, and he was also a Rimcollian, and he received the Sword of Honor recipient from the Tactics and Air Combat Development Establishment. Also, I would like to add to this particular matter that he even commanded a fighter squadron which specialized in maritime and night air strikes, and he was deployed along the western border during the Kargil conflict. He even commanded one of the largest air bases of Indian Air Force in the western sector as an Air Commodore. He held the important appointed of the Assistant Chief of Air Staff Operations of Air Defence for nearly 4 years, wherein he was also the Air Force member of the Tri-Service Joint Operations Committee. Okay. Also, various other important points include that he was the mastermind behind the Indian Air Force's superlative performance during Exercise Scope India 2004, which was the first international bilateral exercise with the United States Air Force with our country. He was also nominated as an exercise director for the first ever bilateral exercise with Republic of Singapore Air Force, that is the Exercise Syndex of 2004. He was the group captain. As a group captain, he was one of the youngest recipients of the Presidential Award. As the Air Marshal, he was also the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of Southern Air Command, and later he was appointed as the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of the Western Air Command. All of these are some of the most important, beautiful inputs that regarding the Air Marshal B. Suresh sir, and we are very proud of him, and we bid a very good farewell to him. Okay, so now we will have a very quick review by going through some of the most important questions. And the first and foremost question is, which among the following major private sector companies is not manufacturing the fuselage, wings, tail fins and rudders of LCA? That include the Mahindra and Mahindra. Okay, there are 5 most important companies, among which they include the Lassinen Tubro, VEM Technologies, Dynamatic Technologies, and also we even include the Tata Advanced Systems also. Going on with the next important question is, in keeping with what scheme the Defence Ministry proposes to ban the import of weapons that can be made in the country? Now, this is coming under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, so under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan scheme, the Defence Ministry has proposed to ban the import of weapons that can be made in our own country. Going on with the next important question is that DPP 2020 will now be called what? According to the draft put out by the ministry, it will be called as the Defence Acquisition Procedure DAP 2020. The final question is Air Marshal B. Suresh PVSM AVSM VM ADC, who recently superannuated on 31st of July 2020, was the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of which Air Command? He was the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of Western Air Command. Before commanding Western Air Command, he was also the Air Officer Commanding in Chief of the Southern Air Command. So now we will have the question of the day, and the question of the day for today is, what are the various types of landing gears or undercarriages that are employed in aircraft? I repeat the question, what are the various types of landing gears or undercarriages that are employed in the aircrafts? The answer for this and a brief explanation for it I will be giving you in the next session. Until then, stay tuned to SSB Crack Exam, subscribe to this channel, download our app from Google Play Store, and last but not the least, always stay safe, stay healthy, eat healthy food, and Jai Hind.